All right. Hello, hello. Welcome to another day of talking about the current grounding energy, which is going through the 64 gene keys, leveraging the woo and making it practical. And today we're talking about patience and impatience and deconstructing the energetic frequency of emotion and how it works in our body and how to leverage it. And like I like to say, I'm Jenna Michelle Online. I'm Unlikely Woo. I'm all about the science and all of that. I'm also autistic, highly sensitive to energy, highly impacted by energy. And even like you may see me do certain things. I had a full Kundalini rising, a very mystical, scientific, and spiritual experience that I'm working on deconstructing, normalizing on the planet, as I believe those who are neurodivergent are uniquely positioned to be able to understand this energy. And with what we're on the planet doing and how our brains work and our hypersensitive nervous systems, I want to normalize energy, as I believe that's what we're currently limited by function wise. And I believe it's the key and the code to us functioning on the planet. So you'll see me in many ways hesitate to lean in heavily when it comes to the woo side, gene keys, human design, all that kind of stuff. I desire to deconstruct it, take all the good stuff out of the woo and present it on the 3D tangible dualistic brain side, because what I want to do is help us learn how to transcend what is this dualistic energy. And for this week and the current energy, it's patience and impatience. And where we're headed in transcendence is timelessness. I did not put slides together, and this again will be the keys to enlightenment. Present moment, what works for me, and building what works for me, building momentum, building consistency, and always leaning into simple, easy, and fun. My commitment is doing this while the energy is current energy on the planet, leveraging the current grounding energy. It's going to change fairly soon. I'm getting ready to work full day tomorrow, and just simply, this is the space and time that works. And so I'm doing this. I'm leaping in, doing this, and getting out of my brain, getting out of what should be, getting out of expectation, getting out of how I'm supposed to show up, and simply showing up and creating this simple, easy, fun, leaping in. And that's what I've got here. So it's a little bit different than what I've done in the past. And I like to just stay in the present moment, co-creation with me and the current reality, and see what shows up. So this is what's showing up, and I'm going to lean in again. And I did 1 hour presentation. A sneeze here, sorry. I'll keep it in because all of my things are all energy. And a degree of moving energy when I sneeze. So I like to keep all of my biological nervous system things in. So I don't know what that was for. And I just trust my body to do what it needs to do and let my body do what it needs to do. Okay, so with that, we are going to simply lean in to the topic of the 5th gene key, which is timelessness is the acidic state. And something that is in this definition is that says to divide consciousness is somewhat of an illusion. There's really no way to divide consciousness. I'm also noticing I did have a little emotional release crying earlier today, and so I can see that as in my face as well. So there's really no way to divide consciousness, that everything is beyond language. And so what we're doing here is doing the best we can to leverage language to give the mind what it needs to be able to transcend itself. We're caring for this ego brain, which is simply left, right, good, bad, the battle between two worlds that is happening in ourselves and on the planet right now. And what we're doing is transcending it. What we don't really know when we're in this battle is that what happens when you lose the battle in many ways, you actually drop into your heart, because you learn to trust, you learn to transcend, you learn to surrender into the benevolent force that is on our planet. With that, those that are in this dualistic brain, what can happen is they may not have access to that because they do not have a world that supports them in showing them that this is even possible, that there is even a benevolent force that's for them, or maybe not, or they may not have the, what I want to say is the support in their world that could even possibly show that that's real, because this brain is going to go to a default program. And that's really what, at the end of the day, what this gene key is about, what this energy is about, what the patience and patience paradox is about. Again, we're going to try to divide it in language, and it's so beyond language. So I'm going to do my best. I usually hyperverbally use way too many words. And what I really want to get us into today is transcending patience and impatience, and really seeing that is the key and codes and process to get into transcendence, to get into enlightenment, to get into the heart. And what is actually there is the definition of timelessness, which is this relation to the world outside of space and time, divorcing ourselves from the dualistic nature so we can see the dualistic nature and we can see ourselves, we can see our pattern, and we can see our human. And so being able to have that distinction is really what I see as the key to enlightenment. And that's not something that's like easily communicated. That's not something that is commonly communicated. Finding that is this privileged space and reality that you hope to be privileged enough to go to some transformational course, or I have yet to find it inside of the church in a clear way. I'm trying to think of how else you can find it. Business, if you're going to pursue a business, maybe you'll read it in a business book. It's not something we are taught in school. I found it later in life, like 35 was this idea that really started to discover this is what's here. And so I want to normalize this conversation, expand it, and take it more out there so other people can see it and begin to see, how do we transcend the ego? How do we transcend my identity that isn't me? I was programmed to this. This was a program I was given based on the environment I was growing up in. And I say this often, and I love to preach it because it's so key, is that who I am is a set of patterns. That's what we're discovering inside of this. Who I am is outside of that pattern. So with that, it's the ability to see that distinction, that I have a human program subconscious that is who I am, with a caveat. Yes, that's who I am and who I'm to be responsible for. And who I am is actually transcendent and beyond that. I'll give a little analogy that I've heard once, is this example of, say you were put under for some sort of surgery and they cut your arm off and they give you a bunch of painkillers and whatever's there, and you wake back up and no one tells you that your arm's been cut off, except you can't feel it. So would you wake up and say, because you don't know, that you as a human has been altered in an extent that the you that you are no longer exists? Did you lose a part of the you that you are with that experience? There is a, like, yes, that was my arm. There's simply a possession experience of it, though. It wasn't quote unquote me. The me that I am is still whole and complete. I can still experience myself as whole and complete, even if I do lose a limb. While there's all the nerve stuff and body stuff, there still is a wholeness and completeness that happens outside of the body. So that helps us see that we're not our body, and being able to get outside of the physical manifestation of this and transcend that is this leaning into timelessness, leaning into enlightenment, leading into this awareness. With this awareness, what we've got to face is patience and impatience. And this is the dualistic rub that we're going to have. We're either going to be patient and we're going to work and it's grow, and we get to reap the rewards of that, or we're impatient and life will teach us to be patient because that's what's there. So I'm going to grab my notepad here, my iPad here, and begin to look through some of my notes that I had for this that I wanted to read. So what I really love in the topic of patience and impatience is, if you are in the state of impatience, really at the end of the day, if you're in patience, you're in trust, surrender, you are doing exactly what you need to do to transcend what's there for you. Like, that's what's there to do. Until we have arrived, all there is to do is be impatient, be in the present moment, be outside of time, be in observation of what's happening, and respond in alignment to our true self and purpose. And inside of that, when we respond, we get feedback. I did share this on the first day one of this, where I walk through my methodology, and you really get to see what's here, get the feedback. And then as a result, it teaches me to be more patient. And I also have the opportunity to respond not in the highest alignment. And that's not a problem. That's teaching my body. I need to do it the wrong way to learn how to do it the right way. There's not a bad or wrong. And something I'm passionate about is what you resist persists, and what you accept, you go beyond. So with that, I personally believe and come from, darkness is not dark to me. My shadow side, impatience, is not a problem. How do I lean into impatience, discover all that's there, and then work to be able to have the ability to transcend it? Because I'm so comfortable in this space. I know what it's like to be impatient. I go there often. What tools, what resources, what keys and codes have I discovered? So when I land there, I can transcend it. I land there, I transcend it. I land there, I transcend it. It's not this experience of like, oh, Jenna, here you go again. You're being impatient. You're blah, blah, blah. No, how do I love that part of me? Because that's just simply the energetic flip side. I can be really patient, and then I can have things I'm not impatient for. And for me, the burning desire that's in my heart to change the planet for the good, being impatient isn't necessarily a problem. And there's a training and a teaching that I'm getting of like, okay, I'm not in control. There is a set pattern. There is something that's happening. How do I learn to do that? And inside of that, how do I learn that so then I can love other people when they're in an impatient state? Because it's not bad or wrong. That's what they're out to discover right now. Life is going to teach them. And that's what I really got in this fifth gene key too, is life will teach us. Life is a set of patterns. In fact, gene key 5 and human design 5, you'll see it comes out of the sacral on the, if you're looking at the chart far left, going up to the identity center. It is the energy that's at the base of all 64 DNA codon kilo, whatever that thing is called. And it's in all living organisms. And so it is this pulse of life. It is the pattern of life. It is this way in which we all connect together. And that's where I see primarily for those who are neurodivergent, especially those who are unmasked autistic, we are aware of this. We are hyper aware of this. I'm so aware of this energetic grid in my pattern and my body and all the things that I'm able to see it. And there's a degree of my heart's desire. And then when life doesn't happen in alignment with that, the brokenheartedness that I get. And something that was really key in this too was talking about those who are open-hearted are able to receive these experiences and learn and transcend them. Those that are not open-hearted, not quote unquote a problem, and life's going to teach you to be open-hearted because you'll learn through this experience that that's what you have to learn until you learn it. And life is going to give you a pattern to learn it, because that is the key, is getting to a space of unconditional love, of this trusting the benevolent force. That's all there is to do. And so with that, in the shadow side, there's 2 reactions that you can have. This is where I want to get super practical. So we have patience. We all want patience. When you have patience, you're not even really aware of patience because you're already transcending the experience. You're like, I'm patient. It's really at the crux. What I want to focus on here is the world of impatience. When you tap into the energy of impatience, that shadow frequency, that tense energy, because it has a real physiological impact on our body when we're impatient. We're impacted every day when we're impatient. So how do I leverage that impatience and really see? You can be one of 2 ways. You can be pessimistic or you can be pushy. And this is out of the gene keys and talks about the reactive and repressive nature. And so that key for me, am I being pushy? Am I being pessimistic? How do I work through this to be able to transcend this? How do I get real that this is what I'm experiencing, and then be able to see that and work to what is actually here? How do I actually shift into patience? How do I create this for myself in a way that works? And so that is, I'm gonna look over my notes here again. That is something that I want to bring light to today, because it's easy to do. So the repressive nature really truly results in energetic collapse, and you lose complete loss of rhythm with one's life. I will say there's a degree of pessimism I can tap into where I get very at a complete loss of the rhythm of life. I know intellectually, I do know in my heart, and there is a actual the faith without works is dead experience. That is, my faith has works and it's not necessarily in the highest alignment. I still have a degree of distrust in what's happening. I have a degree of my basic needs not being met, or possibly not being met. I was actually reflecting on this massively as I was going through this, because for me, I went through a divorce and I don't have kids and I really don't have a family I'm close to. This experience is, I feel all alone. I feel so isolated. I feel so lonely. And this experience of, if something happens, like I don't have anyone, that's my experience. And there's certain people that might watch this and be like, that's not true. And that's right there is the problem with the planet. If I experience that as true, someone telling me that's not true is a form of gaslighting. Yes, you may be there physically. Yes, you may be there. And in my experience, we do not have a connection that I can trust in you, that I can surrender into you, that I can do this in a way that actually supports me. And so there's a degree for me, I don't have community, I don't have support. I lost everyone in my experience. I had a community at a church that I went to, and I lost that. I haven't plugged into another community, and I don't know how to plug into another community. And this experience that I have is, how do I plug into a community? All I've ever done for community has been going to churches and having that be my community. And so where I'm at is, it's hard to be patient at times, because there's a degree of, I don't know if I necessarily trust the rhythm of life. There's a degree of isolation and loneliness that I just don't know what to do. And so I don't have someone to bounce things off of. I'll say this too, I was married for 10 years, and so I had someone to bounce something off of. And so with the experience I went through and the degree of loneliness, separation, and pain that I feel, it's really hard to be clear-minded and when in this impatient space not to be pessimistic. And so there's a degree, like, I know I get out, and in my body I don't have that experience yet. And I know every day those things collapse more and more and more, and I'm not there yet. And so for me to hold the line, hold the void, hold the space between of, okay, I'm experiencing impatience, I can see that, I can shift, I can surrender, I can get into here, or I'm experiencing pessimism, how can I do the work internally to transcend this? Right. Parasympathetic kicking on. So one thing too with leveraging human design, my chart, my soul earth is gate 56, which is the gate of stimulation, which is talking in essentially non-linear fashion and what you're experiencing here. And so when I speak in this way, it grounds my soul in such a powerful way. And so, like I like to say too, with the unlikely woo thing, and being autistic, I've pattern recognized this for 2 years. And so the confidence I have in it is really high. And the insecurity I had in the beginning was really low. So that's where I try to remember where I came from and the uncomfortability of like an energy on a planet and a thing could actually impact my body. And I know for me, the sun and the soul, the sun soul and the earth soul make a difference for me. And I just simply keep learning that. It's just doing that. Like I have the biofeedback of like, I do this, it works. Don't know what else to say. I just have the confidence in it. Okay, look at my notes here. I got another. Yeah. Okay. What it was saying though is in repressive, in this collapse, in this energetic pessimism, what happens is you go down a spiral energetic vortex, which is something I share often. I'm going to share it again just for context. I'm going to go back here and look at the emotional vortex if you want to Google it. And this is one of the major keys and codes for this functioning. And I'm going to share this here. Okay, share the screen. Share screen. And I actually call this is this, I'll say it like Stairway to Heaven or Pathway to Heaven. Yes, I have a bazillion tabs. Bigger, maybe. Okay, that's not helpful. Is that helpful? That's not helpful. We'll go back. There's also the one. Okay, so what we got here is, what I really see is the key here is patience. And why I see that too is, again, here is contentment. What's the challenge here is when you're in impatience, this is the path that you can go. And it often can be that you have to go all this way down before you hit a degree of bottom and then bring yourself back up. What I desire to do is help see this spectrum and be able to run this spectrum and be able to go to joy and fear and pessimism or whatever, victim or depression, being able to hold both. That's what real life, whole life, quite honestly, is to me, because I believe it's possible, especially with support. And why I say that too is there's a degree of, I was a victim to an experience. And so how do I hold that? Because in our world, they tell us we can't be a victim. And in many ways, I truly believe there's a degree of, we are victims to something. Something's not right in the world. I wasn't there. All I know is I got born here. And so me being born in the world is bad, broken, and wrong, and I'm the victim, or I'm the aggressor, or I'm the one who made this happen, then I'm simply would like to talk to the person who tells me that. And there's a lot of deconstruction I've done inside of the religious world, if that's the world you're in. We weren't born into this world in a way that was programmed as bad, broken, wrong. That is a program we picked up. That's a pattern we picked up and something we recreate over and over and over again. And for me, there's a degree of I am a victim. I was born into this world and I did experience something that harmed me. So, how can I hold this and hold this? How can I be an empowered victim, is what I actually see. How can I see the freedom I now have to choose, because I got to experience this side and this side, and I got to experience the duality. I got to experience this low. I know the high. How do I experience both, hold both, and transcend them both and walk down the middle way? And with that, I got another yawn here. With that, in the world of impatience, this can happen. And so something a practice I love to do here too is I'll pull this up and then I'll find where I'm at. Right now, I would say I have a degree of hatred, so much hatred. And so what's there is, okay, how can I get to revenge? What would it look like to feel revenge? And then, okay, I felt that fully. How can I get to anger? How can I get to discouragement? What would it feel like to blame them? What would it feel like to worry? What would it feel like to worry about this? What would it feel like to doubt this? What would it feel like to be disappointed? What would it feel to be like overwhelmed? What would it feel like to be frustrated or pessimistic or bored? What if I was content? What if I was actually hopeful? What if I was optimistic about this? What if I had a positive belief or expectation? What if I actually had enthusiasm here? What if this was actually a passion of mine? What if I actually had joy and love and appreciation for the situation? So for me, that's a practice I like to do. I call it the stairway of heaven, as that's the practice that I've done many moons ago. And just wild how it's aligned here in that language now. And this experience of how do I start at the lowest space and energetically climb myself out, compared to trying to shift into massive shifts. My body and brain can't leap from victim mindset to passion. And I see this is what's missing in many ways when it comes to coaching, is that people come in with the problem, jealousy, hatred, rage. They come in with this and they're like, let's get you out of that. Let's find a way to get that there. How do we shift you into that? How do we get you here? Because you need to stop being a victim. That's a big one for me that I get. No, you're a victim. How can we get to the space of you seeing yourself as a powerful victim? Actually can use what happened to you to change the world. Are you currently insecure with what you went through? Is there some jealousy? Then actually, again, climbing that way out. So this is what I see as a tangible, very tangible way to work with impatience, and a tool to use when impatient, if not all the time, is a valuable thing. So that's what shows up there. It's also 444 here, so I'm just going to say that in alignment. And what's the reactive nature? So if I'm not pessimistic, what can show up is pushy. And so the distinction between that is someone who's pushy is going to manifest disharmonious environments. And not that the energetic collapse or pessimism is harmonious in a sense. There's just simply a toned down version where the other one is very disruptive. And I've experienced both. I've gone to both sides. Again, when we're dualistic, it's going to happen. It's not like none of us have arrived. I have experienced in my body acidic states, and there's a degree of me working back to them. So I know them to be true. It's not me just, it's like this preach to myself. I've experienced it. And so I'm working to I don't know if it's re-embody it, because there is a degree of once you hit it, you're in it. And that's where I'm at. There's just a degree of, because I create content online, I am experiencing these different states and showing up in them. And I don't know how to articulate it the most because I haven't experienced people who have experienced this. And when I read the acidic states, that makes the most sense of my life. It gives me language. And so I believe we're all here. I believe we're all enlightened. And it's that real life, whole life, how to hold the void. And for me, this radical alignment journey, which had me manifest the embodiment of an enlightenment experience. So it's very wild. And you blow this little thing out, this dualistic brain, it like, with one little epiphany, I blew my mind. And so for me, it's this being able to see clearly what's here, to be able to see past the dualistic brain. It's really potent. And this is all written in our DNA. And where I say is all written in the stars, as within, so without my DNA is connected and energetically tied to the stars, and beyond that, what would be the neutrinos, the energy on the planet, neutrinos, if you want to look at them. There's no such thing as quote unquote space. That's really what it comes down to. If you want to look at the planet, there's no such thing as space. Everything has something. And so you are having all these atoms and energy and things that are moving on the planet. It's impacting our cells. You think about our phones and everything that's got the Wi-Fi moving through, like that's impacting us. That there's not space here. There's stuff that's in that. We simply can't see it, and it comes through at a degree where we can't see. And so being aware of that and being aware that this is in our genes, and what's truly there is the vibration of emotion. That chart too, each of those things have a different vibration. There's actually another, I'll share my screen too, to share this is key. Let's see if it's actually back here. This guy right here. So this is another one of consciousness. So this is energy. So enlightenment hits this frequency, and this contracted and expanded. And when you're in shame, which the whole planet is programmed to, I'll close some of these down, sorry. When the whole system is programmed to, and what I continue to work through to move through shame so that we can be here, we can be in there. And it's a frequency in the body. It's part of our cells and DNA. And one thing I really see is this need for courage, because courage can lead us to neutrality. And that was actually the one last week, talking about getting to neutrality. And it takes courage to even get there. And so there's a degree of this is the path that's there. And so, shame is going to keep us in the lowest frequency. And that's what I believe most people are programmed to, especially if you were or are inside a fundamental religion. That whole program that is religion is programmed to that. And something for me that's been massive healing and unlocking is Bima podcast. I say it often because I read through or listened to and discovered the Eastern context of Genesis. And I was like, oh, that is not how I was taught that. And another one too, like the gospel is heaven on earth is here. That's the gospel. I never once, all of my years going to church, never heard that preached. And so being able to see that this is what heaven is, it's that acidic frequency, that acidic state, the space between these two you stay in until your frequency is at a state where you're able to embody the 12th dimension. And so I've experienced it. I am embodied, and I also have a real life experience that's still clearing this to have me embody it higher. And something I get super excited to talk about when it's aligned, and it's simply my human program had a bunch of trauma that came up, and I'm clearing it, and there's so much there. So yeah, enlightenment is a flood of high frequency, and you really can't. Also, you really can't and you really can at the same time. Like there are specific things you can do, which is transcending this dualistic nature, doing the work so you can transcend this denser frequency that is impatience to get to patience, and then open yourself to opportunities and frequencies. And staying in my space is another way to get flooded with high frequency, as it is in all. There's an energetic transmission right now. And what I'm out to do is create more and more content. So there's an energetic transmission when we're in connection. And really what's here is this experience too with enlightenment, with flooded energies. What's there is when you are flooded with energy, your life manifests experiences that are glitches in what's happened on the planet. So what that means is when things, things hit the fan, shit hits the fan, however you want to see it, which is what I'm experiencing too, these glitches in the system, glitches in the pattern, so that we're put on this planet for harmony. That's what our hearts, minds, bodies, souls desire, is harmony. And the glitch I see is that it's disharmonious. And for me, why I love gene keys is we can look scientifically, specifically at the DNA in our body and the energy tied to each one, which maybe there's a little leap of faith. And even if you deconstruct all of the woo-woo out of it and you just look at 64 values of function, that's where patience and impatience come in. We all can agree to that. That's a value that we all have. And so that's what's simply there. And what's really powerful too is I talk about heaven on earth being here and all this kind of stuff. And it was saying the acidic states or acidic frequencies, which is heaven on earth frequencies, is not glamorous. And that's what I've discovered. It's really not glamorous. We all, in the spiritual world or whatever, are like trying to get somewhere. And it's really not getting somewhere. It's learning to be somewhere, which is in the present moment, in the now moment. That's all that's there. And clearing all the glitches that are coming up when it's not in quote unquote alignment and not in this surrendered space of watching everything be perfect. It's not easy to get to everything is perfect. Oh, God. All right. What else do we got? It takes patience to learn patience. Yeah, this experience of feeling lost. If you feel lost, what I want to say and what it was teaching me here is that my cells, DNA, code, everything has a pattern, has a frequency. The whole planet is on a system. And so it's there, this experience of how to hold on and keep showing up and finding a space to do the work, finding a space to plug in, finding a space to connect. That's a massive, 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 massive passion of mine. I'll link stuff down below if you want to join the Magical Misfits, because this degree of what I've experienced is such degree of isolated loneliness that I know that I have, like, this all happened and I have 144,000 followers on TikTok. I know I'm good. It's for me, it's simply making it make sense so I can be heard and understood and accepted. I haven't known how to do that yet. And so there is a degree of loneliness. And I know if I keep showing up, I make more sense. And in due time, I get to present that publicly. And this is where I'm at now, a year later. I knew this was going to happen. I don't believe anyone else really knows that they're going to get out. I don't believe people are confident that it's going to happen. They're simply battling today and they can't see. So what I have for there is, yes, you're battling today, you can't see. How do we stop? And instead of looking at reality, take a step back and say, there's something bigger here. And the fact you want to stop and give up today is proof that you were made for a different world. Because if you didn't have that ability to stop and see, I don't want to do this, you wouldn't have the ability to see that you don't, quote unquote, fit in, that the round peg in a square hole, there's a reason there. And what I want is us to come together and see that we make a lot of sense together. Together we make sense. That's what I like to say in my community. And so it's important for us to come together. And that is a magnetizing force when you can come into a space that removes the fear and embodies love and unconditional love and begins to build the template and frequency and receive in our body this unconditional love, receive the codes of unconditional love, and receive the frequency of unconditional love that comes through conversation and being in space that is so powerfully in love with you as you are, with no need to shift, grow, or change, that even in your pessimistic, pushy, whatever impatient experience, that's perfect. That is perfect. We love you there. There's no shame for being in that space. In fact, you're being human out loud. That's the opposite of shame. For me, that's courage. And how do we create spaces for courage? Okay, I think that's all I got. We're completing this out, really seeing if you're distrusting life, you make sense. We haven't created a world that has safety and that is able to be trusted. And so as we continue to come together and create more of an environment that's for the human, because what we've got on the planet is destruction of humans, that will shift. And there is such a degree of surrendering to the universe that this is happening. And for those that our Jesus loving context, how I see that is there is a benevolent force that is beyond language. In fact, I was reading in my stories today where Yahweh is actually a breath. It doesn't have words. Where back in the day, they couldn't even say the word of God. It wasn't to be said, because once you speak God into form of language, it's already wrong. It is beyond language. So speaking it isn't there. And breathing it is. And so it adjusted my nervous system. Which for me is parasympathetic, which is the heaven on earth frequency. And so for me too, the polyvagal, which I'll throw this in. So I say this often, I say these things. I'm learning my little pattern, which we'll see polyvagal. People discover. So with that, here's heals the polyvagal thing. So what I had, again, theory 3 years ago, this is heaven on earth getting here. How do we get here? And this is where I see that transcendent experience, that we've got patience and impatience in this I can duality. How do we transcend that and actually drop down? And I really see it's being in the space of loving all of it and not judging one better than the other. It's just the state I'm in is observing. Oh, I was impatient. Oh, I was patient. Okay, that's what it's going. My little human's going to bounce back and forth. It's a pattern. If I can recognize the pattern, allow the pattern, and love the pattern, I actually can begin to transcend the pattern. So the pattern that normally goes like this can start to slow down. and then lean in. I just think of an experience too. My dog had a big lump on his chest, and I was like, I'm not going to go down the path of creating something that I don't know. So I'm going to give this up and not worry about it. That was a huge shift for me emotionally. So yeah, and really see what's happening is on the planet. If there's a glitch, which I simply see a glitch as disharmony, we're going to create it, discover it, and shift it. And so that's what I want to help people do, shift into what's more harmonious and rhythmic, and being able to get to the space where we can actually breathe, which I don't actually know if I just breathe that entire time. I know I can speak like a fire hose and it comes out really quick. So I hope that that is a value to you, and I'll continue to work and grow and shift and change and love myself exactly as I am, showing up exactly as I am, and know in due time I will make all the sense and I'll learn how to communicate in a way that works. And I just get so excited, so excited. And this is what I got today. And also, too, I shared this on the first day, and I'll share it today too. The neocortex was a really fascinating thing. That's in my brain, which is available for me to see time. And so being able to transcend my brain and get into my body, get into timelessness, get into observing everything. There's so much power there. And leveraging tools and resources to become the observer is something I'm really passionate about and will continue to create. Being grounded, stopping and watching and seeing and allowing and processing, something I live for. And so love you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being dancing with me as I continue to create content in alignment with the current energy, gene keys, and human design.